Out the front door by the sidewalk are the drift roses. These are the peach drift roses, and they are just beautiful. They pretty much stay in bloom from spring until fall. There was a little bit of a lull right after their first huge flush, early spring, but they didn't stay gone for long. And as you can see here, there are tons of little buds. What I really like about the peach drift is that you get multiple shades and colors really in one grouping of flowers. You've got the deep peach color, and then the really soft apricot color with the yellow center. And you could literally cut this stem off and you have almost an entire bouquet right there. And some of them are spent, but you know, you can just easily pinch that off and then have like an entire bouquet there. So these are the peach drift roses. Notice this one has a dark peach, kind of a one with a more of the pink tips and the white center, and then you've got this one here that's more of an apricot with the yellow inside. All of that on one grouping here. They're just absolutely workhorses, and they don't get much taller than 3 foot. This has been here for, this is probably its 4th year that this rose bush has been here. Also at the front of the house are the pink double knockouts. Now these pink roses, I've already pruned them back once really hard, and they've come back and doubled in the size, and they're pretty much, most of their blooms are sort of spent, but they also have lots more buds coming. Look at that sweet little bud. And then there's one. There's more of an aged one, but these are the pink double knockouts. And then when we first moved here, I planted the red double knockouts, and you can kind of see, you know, the difference there in the 2 colors. But the foliage is very clean. I have not sprayed these roses at all, and not sure why, but we really didn't have much of an issue at all with Japanese beetles this year. And I think that's possibly due to the fact that I did put a granule out that was to kill the grubs in the ground. And I put it all out here in the front yard because I didn't want the Japanese beetles to hurt our roses. So I think that really made a difference. Plus, we also have a lot of the birds that I think it's called a brown thrasher. I'll put it on the screen, but it's a bird, and they're known to eat Japanese beetles. So I hardly had any Japanese beetles this year. And I know that in other areas of the United States, they had them really bad. The blue chiffon rose of Sharon is still in bloom. It's been in bloom for a long time. Something interesting I've noticed, though, is the first time it started blooming, it had a lot of double blooms on the inside. But I've noticed that here at the end of the season, it's missing all of that. This is more like your standard rose of Sharon. I don't see a lot of them. Now here's one that has the petals on the inside. You see that? But it's not consistent. As you can see, this one doesn't have it. So it's just kind of interesting. Here's one that has just a couple. But I'm not sure if that's normal. But they're still beautiful. They're still beautiful. But this is the one that I had tree formed here. So that one has really not stopped blooming since it started. And if you look up there, it's loaded with buds. The Midnight Marvel Hardy Hibiscus, it kind of went through a period where it sort of slowed down blooming, but it looks like it is starting to put on new buds. And there's one that's getting ready to open soon. And over here you can see that there are also new buds. So it's going to put on another show here before long. So it's going to be pretty here really soon. For those folks who live in more southern states, you can really appreciate the crepe myrtles. Or I know some people aren't crazy about crepe myrtles, but I love them. I think they're beautiful, and they also have a wonderful scent. It's a very perfumey scent. Oh, these bloom panicles are huge. And when the wind blows and you're standing downwind, you can really smell them. And they've been in bloom for quite a long time. What's neat about the crepe myrtle too, as it gets older, it starts getting the bark starts peeling, and so you have some pretty neat structure with the actual bark, not just the beautiful flowers. This is also the season of cannas, the canna lilies. These are a beautiful kind of an orangey peach color. And they're in bloom right now. These are kind of a small statured ones, but they're beautiful. Every year in the winter, I think, oh, these are going to die and never come back. And then miraculously, they come back out again. This is another crepe myrtle that the winter killed it all the way down to the ground. This is a beautiful pink. And crepe myrtles really provide a lot of really late season interest, and they come in whites and purples, lavenders, pinks, and as you saw, reds. So, you know, it may not be something that you can grow and have it just continue to develop into a tree. It may be not cold hardy enough for you, but I wouldn't be scared to try it and just let it come up from the ground every year, because they grow really fast. Right behind the pink crepe myrtle here are the 4 sunshine ligustrum. And I just can't tell you how vivid this color is. They're zone 6. I forget how hot they can handle it, but pretty hot. But they are pretty much evergreen, and so they just provide a really wonderful backdrop for this pink. And I have a blue ice, you can't see it, it's an Arizona cypress. So they need to be pruned, so probably this winter, probably early spring, I'll get in here and try to shape them up quite a bit. I need to trim back this crepe myrtle. It's kind of getting unruly a little bit. But anyway, I just think that color is beautiful. Again, this is the Sunshine Ligustrum. It's a Southern Living plant collection, I believe. This is a little azalea that I just planted a few months ago. It was just a little pot we got from Lowe's, and it was actually, it was on sale. And it's a reblooming azalea. It's an encore azalea. It's called Autumn Carnation. And it's the sweetest pink. It reminds me of the pink that you see in the bubblegum Super Tunia by Proven Winners. It's just a sweet pink, but this one blooms in the spring, and then obviously it's blooming here in August, and there are buds, smaller buds coming out. So and it's just a new planting, so I'm excited to see all the new growth coming out, and hopefully it will continue to grow and put on more and more blooms. You can see a bud there. So that's an encore azalea, Autumn Carnation. This little clematis I just planted, gosh, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago, and it's called Blue Light, and it has got a very pale blue or lavender color. And it's just amazing how fast this thing grew. I'm not sure if I showed it on my last garden tour video, but it was little bitty, I assure you, and it's really outgrowing this trellis. It's already to the top of it, so I'm not sure. But it's got a little bud there, and it's got buds here, and it's just, man, it's just really growing. I have to put these cages because the rabbits will eat them down to the ground. But it is a vigorous clematis. It's got new growth here, as you can see. You see that new growth there and there. So I know that as this ages and has, you know, has a chance to really get its roots established, these blooms will be much prettier, much more dramatic, but it's still exciting to see blooms on something that you just planted from a little, hardly nothing, just a couple of months ago. The petunias that I planted from Proven Winners, this is the bubblegum. Just one plant. This pink here was just one plant. And there's the snowdrift, the white, one plant, one plant, one plant, one plant. So I just alternated the pink, white, pink, white, pink. But you can see how huge this one plant got. That is probably close to 5 feet from here to here across. And I have pruned it. I took just some shears and pretty much just went through and just whacked, because it was coming off, hanging off my little rock wall, which you still can't see, but they were getting into the grass, and so it actually would have gotten larger had I not pruned it back. But those are amazing if you want color all season. And of course, the petunias come in all kinds of different colors. If you wanted something more of a yellow, in the yellow variety, or purple. But I like to kind of keep with the whole pink theme back here. But you just can't hardly go wrong with them, other than the fact that they're so common. And some people don't like things that are just really super common. But they have done very well. Something here that would be really easy to miss if you weren't looking is this little baby hydrangea that I planted. It was the tiniest thing when I planted it, and it's got 3 blooms on it, and it's been here for 1 season. And this is the tiny quickfire, and I don't know if you can tell, it's about 1 foot tall and maybe about 1 foot wide, with these three supersized blooms for the size of the plant, which you can see there's part of the leaves of it. But it really struggled when I first put it in the ground. I put it in the ground last year, and I really thought it had died, and it finally came back, and it has really outdone itself this season. I'm just amazed it even has blooms on it. I have a matching one right here. Again, I thought this one had died as well. And you can see it's not near as healthy, but it's trying. It's got a little bloom there. But I was really hoping these tiny quickfires would take off. But you can see here new growth. So I think, given more time, I think maybe it took a season or 2 to get its roots established. It looks like my all gold Hydrangeas grass has gone to seed, which I think is a very pretty wispy look. I just love Hydrangeas grass. It's just beautiful. And the more sun it gets, the more yellow it turns. Something that's really blooming beautifully in the garden in August is yarrow. And this has been blooming for a long, long time. And what's super cool about this yarrow, now this supposedly is apple blossom, but I don't really think it's apple blossom. I think maybe it was mismarked. It may be, possibly, but when I look up apple blossom, It doesn't really show this dark. The dark color does not look like what the apple blossom looks like. But what's neat about it is the new blooms are this really rich magenta color. And then as it fades, it sort of turns into more of that shade and this shade. And then as it ages more, it gets almost this really antique, blushy look. And finally, it gets brown. But that takes a long time, and you can see it's all out there. But Yarrow is just something that, I know I've mentioned it in past videos. I just really wasn't familiar with it. I had no idea what an awesome plant it was. Not just the blooms, but the leaf structure is really neat. If you can see down in there. It's got almost like a fern-like texture, which I think is really cool. These are some zinnias. There's some Queen Lime Blush and some Queen Lime Red. But zinnias, you know, I start them from seed, and they are super vigorous. And I'm sure almost everybody probably grows zinnias. But I'm not a fan of just all of them, but I really like this color combo. Another plant in the garden that I think is just gorgeous is this Queen of Sweden rose. I just think that is the prettiest shade of pink. It's just ever so delicately a pink. I just love the Queen of Sweden blooms. It's more of an upright rose. It doesn't grow too wide. But it does grow more upright, and it's a very vigorous grower. I haven't had to spray it or anything either, but it's just a brand new planting from this spring. I got it as a bare root from David Austin Roses, and so it's put out a lot of growth. This drift rose here is the apricot drift rose, and it pretty much stays in bloom all season long. It had a little bit of a lull right after its spring flush, but I love the color of these apricot blooms. They're little bitty, probably about the size of well, bigger than a quarter. You can kind of see compared to my hand, but they're just absolutely adorable. The color is so sweet. Needs to be deadheaded pretty bad. Absolutely. My favorite, I think, of the drift roses, and there's several different ones. My apple blossom geranium that I planted in these pots are looking good. It's a very, very light shade of pink. I started those from seed and put them in this pot. And then I have some more over here. They need to be fertilized. I fertilized them one time and then just kind of got lazy and didn't fertilize them after that. But I need to go through and get a lot of this kind of stuff out of there. But these are very pretty. I'm hoping to be able to overwinter them. I have a couple of really pretty hanging baskets as well. These flowers are so easy to propagate. The balloon flowers are still looking pretty. Need to be deadheaded, but they're beautiful. Russian sage is looking beautiful. This is called Crazy Blue Russian Sage, and it's loved by pollinators, and it's beautiful. I highlighted this plant in its own video, but this is the candy corn spirea that I planted a couple of months ago, and it has not looked really any different other than it has gotten twice the size, but it is absolutely glorious. The new growth on it comes out this beautiful burgundy wine color, and then down in there it's got this wonderful shade of chartreuse. So the contrast on this one plant is just amazing. It doesn't have any disease issues. I don't see any bugs that bother it. It has really grown significantly, and in the spring it will have beautiful hot pink type blooms on it, similar to the double play doozy spirea, which is back here. But these are the color of the blooms. That's a spent bloom, but if I had pruned this back, you know, it would have it would really be looking good right now. The Firelight Tidbit is still looking really good, and it's got some new blooms starting, as well as some kind of middle-aged blooms. That's a pretty large bloom there. And then it's got some older, the pink older blooms. Just a quick look at the Holy Grail hardy hibiscus. It kind of went through a lull after it bloomed its first flush, but as you can see, it's getting ready to put on a second flush. It's just literally loaded with buds. The Maynite salvia is trying to bloom again. This is another plant that the pollinators love. It's certainly not a big flush like it was earlier in the spring. The Cha-Cha Hot Pink Penstemon is blooming again. It looks really pretty up against this barberry. This is the Sunjoy Citrus Barberry, and just about everything looks really good up against it. The Blue Star Juniper that I have here looks great up against it. The pinks look great up against it. And then I also have the Sunjoy Neo Barberry here, which looks like this all year long. I also still have phlox that's blooming in the garden. I love this hot pink corally color. It's beautiful phlox, and it's not super tall either. I'm not sure of the name of this one. It's some type of a coral phlox. A friend gave me a piece of it, and I planted it. And you can see it's still got little buds. Here is a small bush type crepe myrtle. This is one that usually will die back every winter. I don't believe it's hardy in our zone, but this is an example of how you can plant crepe myrtles even if your area is too cold for them, because they'll die back, but then they come out every year like this one did, and it will produce blooms. Now, these are aged, but look how dark this foliage is. So it will probably die back to the ground again this winter, but then it will just come back out again in the spring and put on this beautiful display. I should have videotaped this like a week earlier, but you can see there's still new buds here. And then that one over there. A word to the wise on the Baptisia. This right here is a gorgeous Baptisia. It's like blueberry decadence, I think. It blooms in the spring, but the foliage is gorgeous all year. But I had no idea it would get this large. This this is a storm cloud Amsonia down here that's being completely run over by the Baptisia. It's encroaching upon, on the other side, I have an Atlas rose. This thing is, you need to plan for these things to be like 3.5 foot tall and at least 4 feet wide. It's huge, but I love the foliage. It's very clean. There's no spraying, there's no bugs on it. I don't have to spray it for any kind of fungus or insects. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous plant, but just be sure and give it plenty of room. And once again, this is the sugar tip rose of Sharon that I have tree formed. It's got a little bloom there, but primarily it's the variegation that I think is so cool. But it's loaded with buds. And as you can see by that bloom, it's the sweetest little baby doll pink when it opens up, with really deep wine color inside the bloom. But it's got buds all over it. But isn't that variegation cool? I mean, it's very pronounced. Look at that. I just think that this structure of this plant and the leaf color is amazing, and I have tree formed it, and it's gotten to the point now, after a couple of years, that it, oh my goodness, I am all in this spider web. You probably can't see it, but I just about stuck my head right there is the thick part. I don't know where she went. She probably hightailed it out of here. But it no longer sends out any kind of little suckers on the side or down below. Once it hits a certain point, all of its growth is pretty much up here. And this is a very strong plant. I do still have some stakes in there. You can kind of see the green stake. But that's just because in the event of a strong wind, I want to make sure I have some extra support for it. But that is one of my favorite plants in the garden. This Winecraft black smoke bush is on steroids. It is amazing. This started off just, I guess it's been here maybe 2 seasons at this point. I know it's gone through 1 winter. But it started off as a little tiny pot, like a quart, and I planted it, and it just kind of sat there. And this year, all of this new growth has come forth. You can see it starting to get tired. The heat's gotten to it, these bottom leaves, but notice the top. Look what's happening here. All of this is new growth. Isn't that a beautiful color of foliage? So it came to the top, and then it kind of opened up and it's sending out multiple branches up here. It's really branching out at the tip of every one of these, I guess you would call them trunks. But this is well over 6 foot at this point, because it's over my head and beyond. So I first thought I would prune it back down to here, but now I'm thinking maybe I should just, remove these lower leaves and just see what it does. I kind of wanted to tree form it, but it's going to certainly be a multi-trunk tree form if I do that. But that is just a beautiful color of the foliage, I think. It is a super vigorous plant. I still might remove some of these lower branches. I'm just not sure. Look at all that. The Oh So Easy Rose has never stopped blooming. The foliage on it is very clean. I've never had to spray it, and it always stays in bloom. It's just a no fuss rose. This is one bush here. I pruned it heavy late winter, early spring, and it came back with a vengeance. There is another plant over here, and you can see that vibrant hot pink color. And then right below it here is the Gara, the white Gara, which is kind of growing up around the Oh So Easy Rose. And that might be a beautiful picture if it weren't for that hideous weed that's loaded with thorns in there. Oh, I don't even know how I can get to it. It's just very, very thick in there with that Gara. But I'll have to get in there and get that weed out. It is covered with thorns though. Can you see that? Look how vicious. Whew. But the roses are also covered with thorns probably too, so. But that is a beautiful color. It looks so pretty against that yellow barberry. And I love the white Gara that's kind of growing up around it. This is a golden Oakland holly tree or shrub, and I planted it this spring. It had been in a pot for 2 or 3 years in my, well, it couldn't have been 3 years because I've only had the greenhouse for 2. It had been in a pot for 2 years, and I planted it, and it has put forth all kinds of new growth. All of this whole shoot here up is new. You can see the new growth there. All of the real bright yellow is all new growth. You can see the darker is the old. But all of this is new growth. And it's a beautiful holly. It's a Southern Living plant collection holly. So for my northern friends, you probably can't grow this. I want to think it's a zone. I'll put it on the screen. I can't remember if it's a zone 5 or if it's a zone 6. We're now a zone 7A. But I'm just excited that it actually started growing. I kind of thought it would just sit here, but it has done really well. But isn't that a beautiful? Look at that coloring. And you know, surprisingly, even though it looks like it would be prickly, it's not. I can touch it. The leaves are very thin, and so they don't poke you at all. I can put my hand in there and it's not poking me at all. So for folks who live in the southern area, this golden oak leaf holly is a beautiful addition to the garden. You just have to give it, you know, plenty of space.